Hi. Welcome to Mills Marine. This is Juliel Arias, your safety manager, and this is your shipyard safety orientation. Some of you may never have worked in the shipyard before, and that's why this part of the orientation is so important, because there are certain hazards that you're going to encounter out there that you guys need to be aware of. And you'll learn more about that in this video. Clothing and appearance. Because there is so much moving machinery in the shipyard, it is important that you guys know that it's actually a safety hazard to wear loose or baggy clothing in the shipyard, as well as accessories. And when I say accessories, I'm talking about simple things like long chains, bracelets, earrings. Even if your shoelaces protrude too far from your shoes, that could be a safety hazard. In addition to that, things like lanyards should have a quick disconnect. Your clothing that you wear to the shipyard should not ever have any kind of drug-related messages. Suspicion of being under the influence of drugs or alcohol. The use, possession, sale, transfer, purchase of, or being under the influence of drugs by employees at any time on company or client premises is strictly forbidden. Employees that show signs of being under the influence of drugs or alcohol by reasonable suspicion are subject to testing and removal from the facility or ship where they are currently working, and can lead to termination. Eating, drinking, and smoking. Food, drinks, and smoking are prohibited in any areas where employees may be exposed to hazardous or toxic materials. Wash your hands and face prior to consuming foods, drink, or smoking to avoid ingesting toxic or hazardous materials. Smoking is prohibited, restricted in some facilities. Please check with your supervisor. Trash and garbage are to be placed in proper containers for disposal. Hazard recognition. Working on a ship is very different than working in any other type of environment, primarily because you're surrounded by metal all of the time, which brings up certain hazards. In order to recognize all of these hazards, there's probably going to be some additional training needed, right? But some of these hazards are very simple to recognize. Primarily, you recognize them by reading things like signs. Signs like scaffold tags, signs like hearing protection, or even signs like hazardous material. Wearing personal protective equipment also significantly reduces the hazards that you're going to encounter on the ship. Here are a few key points regarding hazard recognition. Eliminating hazards is a realistic goal. It is possible to protect against all work-related incidents. Employees are responsible to report all hazards found. A job hazard analysis must be completed and reviewed by all workers to determine all hazards for each job and how to prevent them. The employee's leadership team is required to inform all workers of any hazards due to work activity in that area. Unrecognized hazards have the potential to cause harm to both people and equipment, as well as loss of productivity, trust, and efficiency. Everyone must work together to maximize hazard awareness and safe work practices. Shipyard safety expectation. Cameras and security. Camera phones and other video equipment are not allowed on the pier or ship without prior authorization. Bicycles. Most shipyards do not allow bicycles to be brought inside the facility. If the shipyard does, please refer to the yard's policy. Daily compliance inspections. Regular inspections of work areas must be conducted daily and more frequently when conditions warrant. PPE, or personal protective equipment, is an acronym you're going to hear every single day in the shipyard. Overall, you're the one that's in charge of wearing your safety equipment. Examples of your PPE is going to be your hard hat, your safety glasses, and your steel toes, which is what is included in basic PPE. Here, in this topic, we're going to break down some of your basic PPE and how to wear it. Head protection, basically your hard hats. Overhead work, falling objects, and bumping into things can easily result in a head injury. Overhead hazards may come from cranes and other lifting equipment, jobs on scaffolding and ladders, jobs that are performed on multiple levels of ships or buildings. Hard hats must be ANSI C89 approved and free from defects in both the shell and suspension. Eye protection. Eye and face protection can help you avoid injuries from flying dirt and debris, burn from various hot work, chemical exposure. Safety glasses must be clear when inside of the ships and shops unless you are performing hot work or firewatch duties. Safety glasses must meet ANSI Z87 standard. Foot protection. Employees may not work without proper safety shoes. Foot protection can prevent injuries caused by dropping objects on your feet, contacting electrical equipment, slick surfaces, and punctures. Some facilities require defined heels and leather uppers. These are the best choice for your foot protection. Hearing protection. Working with or around hazardous noise may require you to wear hearing protection. Some areas may require double hearing protection. Earplugs and earmuffs protect from noise hazards such as needle guns, chipping hammers, sandblasting, and grinding. If you have to raise your voice to have a conversation, you should probably be wearing hearing protection. Respiratory protection. Respiratory protection may be required when working with or around hazardous materials. You must be medically evaluated, properly trained, and fit tested to wear respiratory protection. When wearing a respirator, you cannot have any facial hair that interferes with the seal or valve. Specific types of chemical and filter cartridges are necessary to protect against chemicals and particles. Respirators shall be cleaned after use and stored in a sealed plastic bag with cartridges detached when not being worn. Hand protection. Potential hand injuries include cuts from sharp objects and tools, skin damage from chemical exposures and/or burns, injury from pinch points, smashing your hands and fingers between various objects. Make sure the hand protection that you use protects you from the hazards of the job that you are doing. Working at heights and fall protection. Working at heights include work areas above 5 feet, such as a mast, smokestack, or any other structure where the potential for a fall exists. Additional hazards for working at heights include falls, electric shocks, radiation burns, asphyxiation from stack gases, and the dropping of objects. Check with your supervisor before you begin any work at heights. Adequate guarding and fall protection shall be used and maintained at all times when a fall hazard exists. OSHA requires the use of personal fall arrest system whenever exposed to unguarded edges at heights above 5 feet. Fall protection near unguarded edges. When employees are exposed to unguarded edges of decks, platforms, flats, and similar flat surfaces that are more than 5 feet above a solid surface, the edges shall be guarded by adequate guardrails. When employees are working near the unguarded edges of decks and vessels afloat, they shall be protected by personal flotation devices. Personal fall arrest systems. Fall protection equipment. Personal fall arrest systems provide protection to employees by reducing exposure to injuries from falls. Proper guarding or the use of a fall protection system is required for all persons working at heights 5 feet and higher. You must be properly trained and fitted to wear fall protection. Lanyards must be attached to an approved anchorage point capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds. Lockout, Tagout Plus, and WAF, which stands for Work Authorization Form. Lockout, Tagout is the foundation of the work control process to make sure equipment is not energized and free from stored energy before anyone begins working on it. Hazardous energy could include electricity, hydraulics, piping systems, as well as stored energy. The U.S. Navy are the only ones who use the Tags Plus system. The ship's force will hang all tags upon request, and the requesting contractor will observe. A work authorization form, or WAF, is required before work begins. Check with your supervisor to see if a WAF is required. Employees must physically verify the posted tags before working on system components. A lockout tags plus system is required by OSHA. Only authorized individuals may perform lockout tagout plus. You must check the equipment, system, and machinery after lockout tags plus is complete to ensure proper isolation was accomplished. Never remove a tag unless you are the authorized person that installed it. Report all unattached tags to your supervisor. Check with your supervisor when working in different facilities to ensure you are following the host employer's lockout tags plus plan. Confined and enclosed spaces. Entering a confined or enclosed space that contains a dangerous atmosphere can result in death. Confined and enclosed spaces may contain hazards that are immediately dangerous to life and health. OSHA has mandated specific requirements and procedures that must be followed before anyone can enter, work in a confined space and enclosed spaces. You must receive specific training from your employer before you enter a confined and enclosed space. Confined space characteristics. A confined space generally has the following characteristics: limited access for entry and exit. The space is not meant for normal human occupancy. The size and the shape of the space increases the potential for hazardous exposure. Limited ventilation. Examples of confined spaces include tanks, void, cofferdams, sonodomes, and missile tubes. Never enter a space labeled not safe for workers. Always check the Marine Chemist Certificate and the CP log of inspection before entering a space. You must review the permit for your company. Spaces labeled not safe for workers must be ventilated, retested, and reclassified as safe for workers before entry. Examples of a Marine Chemist Certificate and log of inspections can be found on the next slide. Hot work. According to the OSHA definition, hot work means riveting, welding, flame cutting, and other fire or spark producing operations. Hot work includes riveting, welding, burning, brazing, torch cutting, carbon arc gouging, and grinding. VSRA Hot Work Notice Form. The VSRA Safety and Environmental Committee has designed and standardized a hot work permit. This comprehensive form must be completed and posted in order for hot work to begin. The permit is valid for 24 hours from the start date and time, unless a shorter time period is specified or conditions change. An image of a typical version of the form is available on the next slide. When working with hot work, there is some specific personal protective equipment that you may need. Here are some examples of additional PPE that may be required during hot work. Safety glasses with UV protective lenses, special clothing such as leather sleeves, welding and face shields, respiratory protection, heavy leather gloves. All employees assigned to Firewatch must wear shaded eye protection during hot work operation. Clear eye protection must be used at all other times while inside the ship. Firewatches are critical and must be present during all hot work operations. The role of a Firewatch is to prevent fires from starting in hot work areas. Keep area clear and protected. Constantly watch for potential hazards. Detect fires that start in areas exposed to the hot work. Extinguish beginning stage fires. Alert employees, quarterdeck, and host facility of any fire. Firewatches must remain alert. A firewatch must remain in the hot work area for at least 30 minutes after hot work has finished. This is referred to as the cool down period, and they shall never leave the work site until released by a hot work supervisor or designated authority. Hazardous material. Hazardous communication. Right to know under the Right to Know Act. You have the right to know what hazardous chemicals and other materials are in your workplace. These are the goals of Right to Know. To help reduce the risks involved in working with hazardous materials, to give vital information to employees about real and potential hazards of substances in the workplace, to reduce the incidence and costs of illness and injury resulting from hazardous substances. OSHA requires your employer to have a written hazard communication program in place and to train you on the requirements of this program. Examples of typical hazardous materials found in shipyards. Flammable liquids such as paint, thinners, adhesives, and petroleum products, compressed gases such as those used for welding, corrosives, acids, and caustics found in chemical cleaning materials, asbestos or mold in materials such as insulation or flooring, heavy materials such as lead, cadmium, and chromium found in surface coating, as well as radioactive materials. Please take your time and read the next couple of slides regarding hazardous materials. Safety data sheet. SDSs or safety data sheets are required to be in uniform 16-section format. An information sheet is supplied by the manufacturer of a product that warns users of potential health hazards and safety precautions to be taken when using the products. OSHA requires employers to have safety data sheets in the workplace for each chemical being used. Emergency reporting.
Please pay attention. The following may save your life. Emergency evacuation. Once an evacuation alarm has been sounded or you have been directed to evacuate, immediately meet at your department's pre-designated muster area. All employees must be accounted for after evacuation. Supervisors must account for all employees working at the facility that day, and the facility's safety department or ship's force must be notified immediately if an employee is not accounted for. Check with your supervisor for accounting procedures. First aid. You must know your company's first aid plan. Some shipyards provide first aid services for their employees only. In accordance with OSHA standards, it is vital to know your company's emergency plans. Immediately report all injuries, including minor shocks, to your supervisor.
Each job site has a different emergency reporting procedure. Check with security or the safety office to find the location of fire phones and emergency numbers for your job site. Make sure you have the information before you start work. In case of an emergency, contact your supervisor, the shipyard emergency number, or the quarterdeck of the ship. The quarterdeck of the ship is where you show your badge every time you come on and off board. When reporting an emergency, we give the nature of the emergency, the exact location of the emergency, what stage the emergency is in, and then your name and number of the phone you're calling from. Now, for the emergency reporting, my number is going to be on the back of all of your badges. Again, the name is Juliel Arias, phone number is 757-288-0339. Welcome to Mills Marine. I look forward to working with all y'all.